DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman, how you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. So do tell me that you enjoyed the NCAA women's basketball tournament.
Of course.
Okay. Who was your player of this season? Was it Caitlin? Was it Angel?
You didn't ask about the season. You asked about the finals.
Wow.
Raven Johnson was the player of the finals.
That's true. Can you say put a lock on it?
Lock and key.
You got it. Well, NightWatchman, you know what? You're acting like you're actually enjoying yourself and you actually like me. Is that true?
I don't want to admit that on camera, but
wow,
it might be true.
But you are a darn good actor, and that's why, you know what? We should just be talking about the craft. That's what I think. Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about the craft, but do not put my name in the craft along with actors. We actually have some real fine actors that are going to join us shortly.
We do. Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, one of them. You know what? How I knew about him, because sometimes I'm a news junkie, right? So sometimes I turn on like New York One, and I would see this guy say, that can't be him. But I guess it is. It could only be the one and only Greg Mays. Okay, bring him out here. Greg, good evening,
Curtis,
buddy.
How are you, sir?
Good, my brother. How you doing, man?
I'm well. And NightWatchman, how are you, sir?
I'm great.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Well, and NightWatchman, another brother. I had been telling you about this brother for a while, okay? So finally, his schedule did not permit him to come on our Friday tapings, but it did open up and whatnot. And this is after I saw him at the United Palace for Cultural Arts. And this was through, of course, Classical Theater in Harlem with Ty Jones. And it can only be my man, Reynaldo Piniella. Bring him out here. Come on.
What's going on, y'all? How y'all feeling tonight?
Good,
great.
my brother.
You?
Yes. Good seeing you, man. Absolutely. Another one, NightWatchman. This is our first time, even though, as you say, we are stablemates over there at WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. That could only be Antonia Badon. Bring her out. Come on.
Hello.
Hey! Good evening, my dear. How you doing?
Awesome. Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. And NightWatchman, last but certainly not least, because remember, NightWatchman, he's a veteran. He's a Shauna veteran. And this is the dude, when we talk about not Halloween, but we talk about Harlemween, it would not be complete. And Greg knows as well, without, of course, Daniel Carlton. Yes, my man.
All right.
I love that. If that's going to be on my epitaph, I love it.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, we're going to have a picture just with that. And so when she's doing spring cleaning, oh yeah, she'll turn that thing around. Yeah. But NightWatchman, we got to get it popping. Would you like to actually open the salvo? Would you like to do that, NightWatchman?
No, not really.
Okay. So here we go. Let's start and get it popping, as they say. So, my man, Greg, let's do talk. Let's talk about, let's say, of course, the New York One promos, but more importantly, you've been doing other stuff. So I want to hear about some of the stuff that you've been doing there besides New York One. Please do talk.
Okay. What have I been doing? All right. Look, thank you for having a brother. Appreciate it. My story in this acting thing is somewhat different one. Danny Glover is my hero. If you when he was 40 years old, then I said, well, I can start acting when I'm 50 years old, damn it. What I do. So yeah, man, I kind of stumbled upon acting, or acting professionally, that is. One of the greatest gifts that my father gave to us as a family was a subscription to the Negro Ensemble Company.
Wow.
So is the theater that I grew up on. And I am about to date myself. I saw the original Soldiers play, which had Denzel Washington in it, which had
Adolph Caesar.
Adolph Caesar.
Woo!
Okay.
Yes.
I mean,
okay.
That's my man. Man, I'm telling you, right before I go on stage sometimes, I just sort of pull up the theater gods, and Adolph Caesar is number one on my list. As you know, Curtis, I went to Howard after I graduated. Adolph Caesar was at the Smithsonian doing a reading of some Shakespeare stuff, and I made a beeline to go down there to check that brother out. Unfortunately, he did not, stay with us as long as he should have.
Yes.
But he is absolutely one of my heroes. He was the best, sergeant or whatever he was, sergeant was, in the Soldier's play ever. So yeah. So that's what, I grew up watching this awesome theater. I saw the original Home. I saw Zoomana and the Sign when Giancarlo Esposito was hiding up in the little window there. And I think Daniel has a story about that particular production. But that's what I grew up on. Long story short, I tend to study the things that I like because it heightens my appreciation for them. Yes. And that's how my acting thing started. I took my first acting class about 25 years ago. It was in the continuing education department at Stanford University when I was in Palo Alto at the time. And said, wow, it was just more something to do for me to get me from behind the computer. When I came back here to New York, I took a couple of acting classes with, still my dear friend, Antonia Badon, among other people. I was on the board of the Harlem School of the Arts when Chris McElroy and Alfred Preiser had started, the Classical Theater of Harlem.
Yes.
They said, hey, let's do this. And I was like, look, let me finish this other board, joined that board, and spent over 10 years on that board with the illustrious, and inimitable Ty Jones, et cetera, et cetera. So as I took these classes, if you will, my niece was working for a talent manager, and they needed a middle-aged black face, to go on some audition. She called me up. She was like, Uncle Greg, why don't you go on this audition? I'm a somewhat adventurous person. I said, sure, why not? I got a call back, didn't have a headshot, obviously didn't have a resume because I'd never done anything. And this happened a couple of times. And then the talent manager picked up the phone and said, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but, do you want to do this? And again, being an adventurous person and having had some classes, I said, sure. Ultimately, I figured I couldn't call myself an actor, one, before I'd been on the stage, and two, just sort of knowing just these uber talented people like Daniel and these other beautiful folks you have on the show here. So I got some training, and it started out, I did some training at Maggie Flanagan's studio. That's why I did my Meisner program. And I've just continued to just sort of train so that I can, be the best actor that I can possibly be. So
beautiful. Bravo, my brother. Bravo. Indeed. Yes. And needless to say, and I told you about this a while back, Reynaldo, man. Seeing that performance over at the United Palace, I said, where have you been? I didn't know this, man. Arturo Schomburg, man. So, man, tell me about your journey, man.
Oh, sure. So for me, I'm not quite as much of an OG as Greg is. I started acting when I was 17 from East New York, Brooklyn. We did not really have a theater program at my school. But I fell into acting because, like most people, I'm like, oh, this is going to be an easy class. I'm not going to have to read anything. I'm not going to have to study. I'm not going to have to learn a word, right? Joke's on me. But what I found in my acting class out in, Flushing, Queens, where I was going to high school, was drama acting encouraged me to be my fullest self. It allowed me to be loud, to be everything that the society in East New York wasn't allowing me to be. And being the naive New York City kid, I was like, I'm just going to start auditioning. I'm going to see what sticks. I did not know any technique. I did not know what I was doing, but I had that drive and ambition. And I happened to stumble upon Woody King Jr. Did not know who he was, New Federal Theater. And he actually was casting a production of The Toilet by Amiri Baraka. And he was looking for some young brothers to play teenagers. And I auditioned. I was terrible, did not know what I was doing. They knew that as well. But they gave me a really small role in that show. And I started to learn by osmosis. It was the first time I was around professionals who had the type of training that Greg was talking about. And having that experience where Amiri Baraka was there, he was involved with us. Wow. That was kind of my education on the Black arts movement and all those great writers that came out of that. I suddenly was like, oh, snap, I could be a part of something that is not only telling a story, but also making a difference, that's shining the light on people like me in a way that I've been craving. So during my career, as I matured, I was seeking out these opportunities to study and be in proximity to the greats. When I was 18, I happened to join the Flea Theater. They had a resident company of actors called the Bats. And I got to take a master class with Andre DeShields. And, Andre was the first teacher I had that scared me. And what I mean by that was he could see how I was trying to play the game, meaning I was the young Black kid. So that's what I was given. I was given all the stereotypes. versus Andre being like, look, you're doing this because you feel like it's going to give you work, when actually you being your fullest self is going to allow people to see a part of their humanity they're not seeing yet. And that's what's interesting. And that's really going to get you to the places you need to be. And, you know, that's a lesson that maybe as an 18-year-old, I wasn't able to fully internalize, but I really look back on as being like foundational to the artist I am today. And, you know, then over the years, you know, I started to get that training. I got that experience, and I was seeking opportunities to be a part of companies that allowed me to be my fullest self, meaning a lot of actor training is geared around stripping you of what makes you unique, meaning how you speak, the way you move your body, certainly with the motivation to make you flexible as an artist, so you're not only playing yourself. But we know as Black artists in particular, so much of our magic is ancestral, is coming from our environments, coming from the people around us who have shaped us into who we are today. And when I encountered the Classical Theater of Harlem, I saw a company that was looking at the canon of classics and being and saying, hey, these classics have excluded us for so long. What can we bring to them that will shine a light on these texts, but also us in an amazing way? And the first production I got to be a part with them was The Tempest. Which starred Ron Cephas Jones, this you know, transcendent artist that, you know, unfortunately we've lost now. But seeing and being around Ron and seeing his attention to the text, the way that he prepared every day, Carl Cofield, our director, you know, phenomenal, really infusing all of the dance, the music and sounds of the Caribbean into that play. I was like, how can I do this work all the time? I suddenly like found my love and passion for the arts in a new way. And now I guess the new frontier, what I'm doing is I'm writing my own work. I'm creating my own work. And part of that has been solo performance. And in particular, the show you mentioned about Arturo Schomburg. Schomburg, like myself, was Black and Latino. He's credited with inventing the term Afro-Latino because there was not a word that existed to describe himself. And when I looked at his life, I saw a man who was told at a young age that his history did not exist, that he as a Black Latino was lesser than the people on his native land of Puerto Rico. A man who came here to New York City, San Juan Hill, Harlem, and the cultural elite said, hey, you're not educated like us. You don't have the Ivy League degree like WEB. So you're not, you know, you're not welcome in our circles. And despite all of these roadblocks, he saw the power in preserving our stories and sharing it with future generations. And when I discovered this story for myself, I'm like, I need to tell this. I need to bring this story to the stage. So that's what I've been doing. I'm blessed to be carrying on his legacy and to be here with you all.
Beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. So needless to say, Night Watchman, whenever, of course, February rolls around, we have Black History Month. But more importantly, oh my God, Zora Neale Hurston. So it can only be Miss Badon. Please do tell.
Everyone, glad to be here. Yeah, my story actually begins in New Orleans. I graduated Diller University in theater, and I guess it kind of started when I wanted to ask God, you know, what would be a good major for me, and I kind of felt He said theater, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with a theater degree? But I did. I kind of double majored theater and communications, and I had a great theater coach in New Orleans. I was a part of the Voices in the Dark repertory theater company, and my coach at that company actually did a lot of work in New York City with Gene Frankel. So when I got to New York, that's the first place I wanted to study, with Gene Frankel Theater Company, as well as Negro Ensemble. And but as an artist, you do have to get real work to live here. So I was able to work as a producer with It's Showtime at the Apollo, Chuck Sutton, Percy Sutton's company.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
with Steve Harvey. So I got a chance to literally experience pretty much everyone in the 90s. That's pretty much famous now. And I knew that I still wanted to do as much work as I could as an actress. So of course I stumbled on Zora, learning about Zora in New Orleans, and I brought that show to all over. We sold out at the University of Pennsylvania 2018 at the Andy Theater. And right now, Zora is booked October 14th to the 20th at the American Theater of Actors, October 14th to the 20th, and in New York City. So we're still headed to Broadway. It's taken us a while. Yeah.
Congrats, my dear. Excellent, excellent. Well, you know what? Needless to say, I heard Reynaldo talk about writing, actually having the whole creative process, taking ownership of that creative process. And Daniel, you talk about your like arc in terms of, let's say, moving more and more into directing. So do talk about your acting, but also now the later iteration, your directing prowess.
I love prowess attached to my name.
Good. Take it, brother.
So the acting is very interesting. I love hearing these stories about how someone influenced, mentioning like Greg and NEC and Reynaldo, with Andre DeShields and Ty Jones being connected to everybody, and Antonio's New Orleans roots. So my route to acting came out of pure competition. My brother was in a play, my older brother, and I was just like looking at him going, I could do that better. I know what to be done right here. Like he's doing too much. Like I know what. And so I was in a talent show also during that same month, and we were doing the Jacksons, and
wow.
And I was doing Michael. And my voice was much more high pitched then. And I won, like my group won. And so those two like things like said, oh, I guess I have a place. And I'll give a backstory to that, a quick one. Is that I started out here in Harlem. We moved upstate to Ithaca, and then we moved to Texas. And so we moved around a lot. And when you're moving around a lot, you have to kind of take on, like, you have to assess situations very quickly, and you have to be almost a chameleon until you learn your place in the pecking order of the whole thing as a kid. And so when I got into my first play, everything started to make sense. Like all the stories that I used to tell my little brother to help him go to sleep, and he would be like fast asleep, but I'd still be telling stories, because and so what happened was I did this play down in San Antonio, and I got the attention of this group called the San Antonio Little Theater, and they were doing a production. They were doing this thing where they were doing The Wiz and The Wizard of Oz, and they were like doing it like they would rotate each week. So I played like the flying monkeys. And I played all these like, because I was like 13 or 14. And that was the bug. It also got a check, which is really nice. And so I went, oh, this thing could work. So I thought this is how it worked the whole time. Like every time, like you just showed up, like you get a check. Gotcha. So after college, and I rushed through college because I couldn't wait to get back to New York. And when I got to New York, I was super fortunate. I started with this company called the Creative Arts Team at NYU, which allowed me to go to graduate school. And it also introduced me to a lot of people who went on to become pretty major, but to watch them like at the cusp, like Ella Joyce, who was going by a different name, Samuel Jackson. Also in Texas, the last play I did, which kind of led to like a really big moment for me in my youth, is I was doing, Greg mentioned like Zooman and the Sign. So I did a regional version of that, and I played Victor. So Lisa Watson, who was NEC stage manager, production manager a lot back then, she knew that I had done that. And so when this group called the American Folk Theater was looking for actors to go to the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland, I got the job. The show was bombed. but I did get something out of it. Two things. One is I ended up living in Scotland for a year because I got picked up by this company in Scotland because they were trying these Black American plays, and the accents were not quite, But out of that, when I came back, the producer assumed that I sang, and there was a play that was co-produced with NEC called Anchorman. It was written by an amazing playwright named Paul Carter Harrison, and Al Freeman Jr. was the father.
Oh wow!
And Giancarlo Esposito, I was his understudy, which I also got my equity card. But I thought that was my big break. Except I learned something about really good actors. Really good actors are greedy. Because I would beg this guy every time, like, yo, man, just let me get a show in, man. Oh, yo, brother, you gotta learn, man.
Gotcha.
So needless to say, like, throughout those experiences, this is something I picked up, and I'm glad Reynaldo said this, that I also learned that within this journey, and Antonio, I understand what you're doing, is that I also learned to start writing, like, my own materials, and I started to learn how to do solo shows back when, particularly where there were a lot more venues for that. Down in the East Village, I don't know if y'all remember all those spots down in Alphabet City, where you could just have an idea. Like I remember once I had an idea that I'm just going to say the N-word for like 30 minutes, like as many characters as I could think of, and somebody picked it up,
Wow.
But so the acting writing thing, it sent me all over the world. Like I did an amazing project in the 90s called the Children of War Theater Project, where we went to 16 countries where children were coming out of conflict, like Bosnia.
Oh wow, Bosnia. Yep.
We were in Bosnia. We were in Cambodia. We were in Chechnya, in Russia. We were in all these places. And one of the things that I started to do was I started to observe the director's process. And so now I would say that probably it's interesting to be here for acting, because I am acting in a tour right now where I'm doing all these characters, but called Finding North. And I go back out in May. It's a national tour. But the thing about directing is that it has now become that, and writing and playwriting have become probably the 75% of, like, my income and my work.
Gotcha. Well, very good. NightWatchman, do you want to talk about your 8th grade play or what? Just checking.
Okay, we're taking shots here, are we? Okay. So both of us are Curtis and I are actor aficionados. We both married actors.
That is true.
And
yes.
Neither of us have acting skills, so to speak. You can tell by Curtis. Curtis also thinks he's a comedian, and he doesn't have that skill either. But other than that, I mean, it's great just hearing you guys' journey, because what we really see is that you guys are ultimately storytellers, and whether you're writing, directing, performing, and Antonia, of course, has a radio show. I know her also because she's a history buff. And we've had conversations many a time. I'm still trying to get an invite on her show, but it's about expression, and what I see the common denominator is that you guys use whatever medium or media is available for you to tell a story. You're all history buff from what you've told us, and it's so important right now in America, because we're at this place where they're really trying to take our history and erase it. Eracism, I like to call it. And the work that you do, it's so community involved. It's makes such a difference in terms of, and it's interesting, Reynaldo doing Schomburg, because literally the work you guys are doing is part and parcel of what Schomburg's life is about.
Yes.
So that's all I got to say.
Oh, well, thank you, NightWatchman, for that. As a matter of fact, okay, so Greg, Palo Alto, that must mean that you were in the tech space. And suddenly a light bulb went off. Do tell me, what brought you to Palo Alto besides Stanford, man?
Yeah, I had two really good friends, or one really good friend and his business partner. They started an internet company called Net Noir.
Oh yeah,
Oh
yes.
yeah, I
Oh
remember that.
yeah.
Yeah, my man.
Early
David
stages, man.
Part of AOL's
yeah,
greenhouse.
Right.
absolutely, NightWatchman. You know,
Wow.
so that was look. I tell people all the time, I don't have popular taste, because if I had popular taste, I'd be a lot richer than I am. And I will say this: so when Net Noir was being formed, Netscape, if you remember that browser,
Yes.
Netscape was starting up. That's how long ago this
Wow.
was.
Okay.
Man.
And, you know, clearly if I had any sense, I'd have been working in Netscape and I wouldn't have to work to this day. But you know, instead, I worked for this little super niche, you know, Black internet space before anybody really knew what the hell the internet was. So that's what I was doing in Palo Alto. My dear friend David Ellington and our brother Malcolm Cassell, who has, you know, passed, they were starting the company. And I was employee number 2. Another friend was employee number 1, and I was employee number 2. So just a phenomenal experience. And, you know, Stanford, we literally were just down the block from Stanford. And I've always loved, you know, colleges and universities. So I popped up there and took this acting course with a gentleman by the name of Winter Mead. And what a great stage name. And we worked on Waiting for Godot. And being a New Yorker, you know, that means that automatically you think you have some Jewishness in you. So, you know, I did Waiting for Godot with my New York Jew accent, you know, and it was hilarious, you know.
Give me a sample. Go ahead.
No. You know, he told me, he was like, skip the accent, Greg, skip the accent.
Love it. Oh my God. Yes, indeed. Well, you know what? And Reynaldo, you heard from many of your brothers and sisters here that, you know, they had to do other things in order to make ends meet. So tell me some of the various jobs and hats that you were wearing, man.
Oh, Lord. So, you know, I mentioned my story started when I was a teenager. My first job, when I was that 17-year-old that did not know what he was doing, I was sweeping up the projects. I was working sanitation off the books out there in Left Rack in Queens. Making my minimum wage, my $7.15 an hour back in the day. But it was all good because I wasn't paying rent, so I was getting a new pair of Jordans every week. You know, then from there, look, I was working at Cold Stone Creamery back when it was in Times Square.
Oh, yes.
Going to auditions on my break. Left there. Then I was working retail, doing overnights at Uniqlo American Apparel because it was flexible with my acting schedule. But, you know, actually now I'm really blessed to be teaching. Teaching has been, you know, more part of my artistry and has actually deepened, I think, a lot of my craft as well.
Where are you teaching now?
So I teach both at NYU Tisch and I teach at AMDA as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
You know, and it's cool. You know, I don't miss scooping ice cream. I don't miss sweeping up the block. But I think, you know, in particular, like now feeling like I can be that mentor figure to that next generation, you know, not scaring people the way Andre the Shields once scared me. Certainly, you know, keeping it real with them in the sense of how the industry may view us, but also empowering them, all my students, to feel like they can tell their own stories and not wait for permission to do it as well. You know, I think, as you mentioned about my piece about Schomburg, that was so much of his legacy, was encouraging that next generation to take their histories into their own hands.
Yes.
And his connection to Zora Neale Hurston, I think, is amazing as well. And us being in that same space in this room together. So that's where I am right now. You know, thankfully, I have these multiple streams of income coming in. But, you know, I'm just excited to like keep growing and surprising myself as an artist too.
Beautiful. Antonia, yes, you're definitely, like I said, multiple hats, multiple jobs and whatnot. And that story about, of course, inner city broadcasting, I didn't know.
Oh,
very
yeah.
good. Yes.
Long time as segment producer for It's Showtime at the Apollo. So I think that producing will always be in my honing stuff. And thanks to, of course, your company, I was able to put out my first book.
Oh, let's see it.
There we go.
Series of children's stories, landmarks in Harlem. Thanks to your company during COVID, you were offering a lot of the classes with with SCORE online.
Oh,
And
excellent.
yeah, and I was in those classes every morning.
Love it. Love it. Oh,
Yes,
man.
yes,
So,
yeah. I just have to also mention that Zora is as a play written by Lawrence Holder, who wrote When Chickens Comes Home to Roost, Denzel Washington's piece. Yeah,
yes.
so,
Yes.
so I'm staying active, staying busy. Um, my first reason for doing more on the historical content is because when I was performing Zora on the college circuit, a young man said he had never heard of Richard Wright. So
What?
yes, just how you said that's how I experienced it. So that was the reason I did the radio show, Harlem Renaissance Time Travel. It takes you back to Harlem, exposing you to the landmarks as well as all those great culture giants during that time. And of course, when COVID hit, your company is having all those classes. And I got you, I think in the class you offered communications with a SCORE mentor.
Yes. Yes.
I got with a mentor at SCORE and I said, hey, I wanted to do a children's book. I want to do a children's book on all the landmarks in Harlem. And literally he walked me through the different processes I needed to do. And every time he gave me an assignment, I got made sure I turned the assignment in. And of course, my first book, thanks to LC, Lower Manhattan Lower Manhattan
Cultural. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
they gave me my first grant to make sure I
Beautiful.
was able to give the kids the book for free. And
Nice.
now I got a second grant to do my next book, which is the Lafayette Theater. So it's a way to allow kids to see the community with brand new eyes, I say, so that now when they look it up, they can see those where those landmarks are, and also how important their community is to the world.
Yes, indeed. Oh my God. Very congratulations, Antonia.
And that's right. Arturo Schomburg would tell all the artists like Langston and Zora, writers like Langston, Zora, Claude McKay, who were traveling a lot. He would actually tell them if they found anything that he would pay 25 cents or a quarter, 25 cents or a nickel for anything they would find, any kind of literature, any kind of artifacts about Black history. And so, yeah, kudos to Arturo Schomburg, man.
Beautiful. Excellent. Love that. And you know what? So Night Watchman, certainly back in the day, we had, of course, our guy, I'm forgetting his name now. Why? Well, Hollywood Shuffle.
Robert Townsend.
Yes.
Thank you. Fast forward to now with American Fiction. And you got to say, so man, oh man, Greg, do tell me you've seen the arc, baby. You've seen the arc.
Okay, wait. So
I know. Just saying how, in terms of Black portrayals, because remember, you did also a Jewish character per se.
I did it all right.
Yes. I mean, we don't have at this day and age, at least we don't, not since I think Ted Dancing showed up in blackface. We don't have white folks dressing up as Black folks. Or do we?
Now there's an interesting little controversy this week because Billy D. Williams came out in favor of blackface.
What?
And he was, and Robert Hooks, who we know, co-founder of NEC,
correct,
respectfully followed on that with a tweet where he said, you know, I respect Billy D. He's got a great career, but I respectfully disagree with his opinion on blackface. So we have a little bit of a blackface controversy going on.
Yeah. Look, I was just gonna say, Curtis, that I'm inspired by these folks sitting right here on this podcast, man, because I have ideas in my head.
Yes.
I need to just basically get some discipline together and just sort of start to get them out to create my own material. If I think about just sort of a strategy, I'm always trying to think about just sort of how I move my acting career, to the next level. And lately, that's what I've, determined that, you have to be seen. And if no one wants to give you a chance to kind of be seen, or what better way to be seen than for you to create your own material and just sort of put yourself out there. So that's the that's the direction that I'm going in next.
Okay, beautiful. And Reynaldo, you also see that in terms of creating your own material, your own story, and putting that out there, man?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was a big struggle of mine for a while in terms of feeling like I was sharing the fullness of my humanity through my work, and I think a lot of that was just because my dad's Puerto Rican and Cuban, my mom's Black, and often in this industry we know people put us in boxes.
Right.
So in certain
Right.
spaces, I was the Latino guy; the other spaces, I was the Black person. To the point where I walked in for an August Wilson audition for a play, and I had a director ask me if I was Black. And my first Broadway gig, the casting director told the director that they couldn't hire me because I wasn't Black, I was Latino. So it was this weird thing where suddenly for me, I was like, well, who am I? What am I? And how can I celebrate stories that, like Schomburg, is about my fullness and our fullness as people.
Yes.
And one of those projects actually in development right now, I've co-adapted a bilingual Spanish-English Hamlet.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been, I was developing that with the Classical Theater of Harlem. We're taking that to the Folger Theater this summer out in Washington, D.C. We just had a reading of it about a month ago, I want to say, with Cara Young, with Ophelia. We had Daphne Rubin Vega, an amazing theater legend, as Gertrude. And part of that is really rooted in Harlem and, the intersectionality of our communities, the different languages on our streets. That's something that instead of waiting for someone else to create that project, I've kind of taken control and said, no, I'm going to be the one to do it. So it's giving me a lot of joy for sure.
Beautiful. Well, you're definitely going to be keeping us updated. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I got you.
Because Night Watchman, we may have to take a road trip, buddy. You ready to
I'm
ride
ready.
with me or what? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Antonia, what do you have in the works that we should know about, huh?
So, as I mentioned, Zora, Carol Schimmel took me to to Philly at the Annie Berg Theater, and she's also to 54th Street. And with her help, we'll get to Broadway. This play is directed by Greg Freelon, who's been with me for the last, 12 years, helping me keep this play alive. And we're going to be at the American Theater of Actors on 54th Street, West 54th Street, October 14th through the 20th. Zorro, a play written by Lawrence Holder.
Nice. And you know what? One of the things we heard, Daniel, remember, there was a particular film which the actor, supporting actor, won an Academy Award. It wasn't written for him initially. They were looking at a white dude, but instead they had Louis Gossett Jr. Okay? So should roles be specific and who they're written for, or should just, acting trump all? Color doesn't matter.
Well, I can't wait to jump into that, and I'll tell you why. So right now, a lot of my works does center around history and how history converges, with the present. And so I'm on a tour right now, which is a longer story, but about how I've discovered the world of TYA, theater for younger audiences, which in my work, which I've discovered, I can write and direct pieces and perform in them that reach 175,000 kids a year. So I have about 3 tours out right now. And one of them is a show called Finding North, where I play a Jewish woman, a Guatemalan person who crosses the border, a Pakistani boy, a man named John P. Parker, who was an amazing person who helped people, formerly enslaved person. I played 12 characters in this piece, and they're all different cultures, but they all come through this brown man, and sometimes in the talkbacks, I get these questions like, why? There's another person, David Gonzalez, who wrote it and who played.
Oh, David, the writer. I know David. Yeah, absolutely.
And he presented to me because he was once playing these parts. He's Latino, of course, and he said he felt like it sent a stronger message to see how in this American story about who's an American, how coming through my body and my interpretations, he's that is a message to really send out there. But I also want to talk about something else really quickly, and that is the power of one creating for yourself so that you're never dependent on one source of validation or work. But the other thing is like to also make sure that what you want to be heard, because it lands in ways you don't even know. And I'll tell you a quick story. I wrote a show about 12 years ago called Pigfoot Mary Says Goodbye to the Harlem Renaissance.
Oh.
And it's a verse play. And in it, this entrepreneur known as Pigfoot Mary was on 135th Street, and you know, and all of them. So I include all the people like Langston's or all these people who had to come through that. And
yes.
So about 3 years ago, the New York Times was doing their obit program about people who didn't get an obituary when the Times, you know, kind of overlooked them.
Yeah.
And because there are no pictures of Pigfoot Mary,
oh man,
they had to pick the actress Benja K. Thomas, and she is like the forever Pigfoot Mary.
Wow.
In people's minds, right? And this is like a cover art story, you know, so an obit story. So it's just like amazing how, you know, like you talk about Antonia about them not knowing who Richard Wright is. It's like the shows that I'm working on a lot now in these TYA shows is they all deal with some aspect of American history, like the March on Washington. You had a guest, Kevin Magruder. I was in his town down in Yellow Springs. I work with a company out of there where I write these musicals now that go out and tour nationally with like these American history themes, but like the untold or unsung. And I try to make all of these like multiracial cast, but the leads have to be Black, and the stories can't be about Black people being saved by white people.
Amen.
So hold on. Night Watchman, you tell me you don't believe in white saviors, man? Is that what you're saying?
It's just a trope. It's been done. It's awful. You know, when you take a story. Remember this movie? What was it? A Dry White Season. Yeah, and it's all about the horrors in South Africa and how the white person. It's you know, it irritates me, and this is why I applaud you guys for the work you do, because if we're not telling our stories from our own perspective, we get more and more of the same nonsense. We get that mixed up with the magical Negro trope, you know. I mean, this is real. Come on, we can name these movies. We've seen them, The Green Mile, and you know, and what was the one, Bagger Vance. And this is what Hollywood likes to, you know, that's you know, the guys who greenlight these Hollywood films manage to still bring these tropes back. I mean, it even goes back from I even go back to kung fu films in the 70s, where you always had the white kung fu guy, the only white guy who went to the Shaolin temple, and he becomes the greatest martial artist. Well, get that mess out of here. Come on.
Wow.
Come on.
So, okay. Night
Am I wrong? Somebody tell me I'm wrong.
I'm wrong. Chris lie.
Crickets.
Greg, please take that a little further. Do tell, because Classical Theater of Harlem, right?
Yes.
Initially had two white founders, talking about Albert and of course
Alfred and Chris. Yeah.
Chris.
Look,
exactly.
I don't know whether you've seen the new casting for Thornton Wilder's Our Town, one directed by Kenny Leon, but this is the craziest multi-culti, you know, Our Town that we're ever going to see. Everything from Billy Eugene Jones to Ephraim Sykes to Donald Weber Jr. to Willa Boss to, I mean, Duran. I mean, it's half the town. You know, is at least Black and Latino. You know,
wow.
Black and brown people.
Yes, yes.
So you know, so much is changing. You know, thankfully. And for me, that translates into I'm taking a class. It's funny, Reynaldo mentioned New Federal Theater. I'm taking a class there now, and I've taken classes at NEC with Daniel, as a matter of fact, instructing them. But the young cats in the NFT class, I just tell them, I said, look, you know what? The opportunities are expanding tremendously, So, while I'm here to just sort of, do some Black theater in particular, y'all got to just sort of, blow it wide open and prepare yourself for, these opportunities, for these non-traditional opportunities, and I am about to, most likely just do this tour of A Midsummer Night's Dream with Stella Adler, student of acting. And just because, look, I'm trying to do it all. And, I need to really it's in my interest to prepare myself for whatever opportunities just sort of come my way. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And Reynaldo, I definitely got to give you some major props for embracing not only your Latin side, but your African side. So props right there. Because sometimes, Reynaldo, when I'm like watching, let's say, some Spanish television, like, where the hell are we? Where the hell is the Black representation, man? Like, what the hell? Well, did you often find that frustrating at all, man, or what?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, because we all understand the nuances of our identities, how someone being lighter skinned tells a different story than someone being darker skinned. And sometimes these casting directors, aren't as hip to the fullness of who we are, and having, I got called in to audition for Narcos, and I'm like, hey, y'all, like, that's not me, like, I appreciate the shows, just not, I don't live in this universe, and these casting directors, like, couldn't quite even understand that, hey, there's New Yorican, and there's Colombian, and there's Mexican, and there's, Afro-Latinos of all different backgrounds, and it was frustrating, because I never felt like I fit in for whatever reason. And that frustration really in some ways made me fall out of love with the craft, in the sense of I was giving my power away. I was letting somebody tell me when I had permission to practice what I do. And there's something in my teaching work I'm trying to share with my students. Like, even when we think of the classics, there's all of these amazing works of art that have been pushed aside because they haven't been deemed worthy enough, that we need to, like, brush off that dust and share with these, younger artists, to be like,
absolutely.
No, people have been telling our stories for decades, and just, for whatever reason, the establishment haven't embraced it, or maybe they're telling our story in a nuanced way that people aren't ready to hear, but we've been ready to hear it ourselves. So, that's why I think I've been writing the way I am. I'm trying to elevate other artists. I've actually been co-running a playwriting lab through the All Stars Project, which is a nonprofit organization where New Federal Theater was actually in residence at for a while. And the reason I've been co-running this lab is so many of the opportunities for us to develop our work in the pandemic kind of went away. Theaters cut their budgets. They really got really strict around who applied for what fellowships and who got granted those opportunities. So for me, I'm like, look, if I have the space, I'm going to share it with my community. I'm going to bring in people who just need a room and a space to grow their project, to be in collaboration with actors like all the people on this call, on this podcast, to just take our work to the next level. So that's really what we've been doing. We got another reading coming up April 29th, where people can hear an awesome play by Washington Kirk. By the time this comes out on the 15th, we've had another reading by an amazing writer, Camille Watkins. These are all Black emerging writers telling our stories in layered, nuanced ways. And we're showing the world and the theater community that, hey, these plays exist. You can put your money where your mission statement is. So yeah, that's some of what I'm trying to put out there right now.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Antonia, so congratulations once again on the children's book. You got another one under the cap that you're working on? Another idea? Tell me.
Oh yeah, the children's book is going to span. It's going to cover all the landmarks in Harlem, the Lafayette Theater.
Wow.
So it's going to be my life's journey. And and Zora, I tell you one thing, my inspiration was Whoopi Goldberg when she did woman show. I thought that was the bravest thing I've ever seen a woman do in my life. So I think that gives me the strength. I don't have any fear. I kind of stand on that old thing. When you wait on people, you give your powers away. So I'm always wait on somebody to make things happen for me. But yeah, so look for the Lafayette Theater this summer. It's definitely coming out from a grant from the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. Thank them again, a re-grant. But yeah, so I think that's I stand on Whoopi Goldberg and her strength and her determination and the play that she did years and years ago. When I was looking at her, I said, my goodness, that woman is so brave.
Nice. You know what, Night Watchman, I'm going to give you some props. You know, you say I never seldom congratulate you and give you props and whatnot. I'm giving you props. I love the tags that you run other folks. So where'd you learn that skill, man?
I don't need your validation. Let's start there. And let's keep the focus on these fine actors that we have on the show. Nobody wants to hear about the tags, least of all you. So just not being disingenuous. I know how good I am. I don't need your validation.
Okay. On that note, you know what? One thing I have observed, especially with this evening's discussion, all of you guys are definitely comfortable in your own skin in terms of the ability to do this. Let's say one person plays and be able to captivate the audience. So, Greg, was that always one of the things that what I can do this for damn near 90 minutes? I can capture you.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to give you the quickest of stories.
Go ahead.
Being comfortable in your own skin is just so important because it takes time and energy to be something else. So, my father has this strange habit of just sort of meeting strangers and all of a sudden they're at our house for a weekend or something like that. And so he had this big, tall, 6'5", Swedish white guy, blonde hair, blue eyes, staying at our crib, with my mom and everything for about a week. And then I was at business school at the time. And so this young man, comes up to business school to visit me. And he's walking around with me and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, he said, Greg, I noticed that, you are one way with your black friends and another way with your white friends, right?
Oh, my God.
And it was
Code
only
switcher.
like an outsider could just sort of present this to me, right? And it didn't shake me, but it was like, damn, right? Fast forward like 5 years later, I was working for Sony Pictures and we were working in video distribution. And there was a sister, a Dominican sister, who was, working in the department. And she and I were the only people of color. It was my last day. She said, you know what I love about you? She said, I love the fact that you are the same person with everybody. And that's how I knew that I had let that shit go of trying to, be somebody else to make someone else comfortable, et cetera, et cetera. I am who I am. I present who I am. If you like it, great. If you don't, it's all good.
Yes.
So that's what I say.
Nice. Reynaldo, you heard it. You heard it. Code switching, baby. So do tell.
Woo! No, that's so real. And what Greg was saying about, changing who we are based on which environment I'm in, that was such a big part of like my introduction to the arts, where I came in, to these rehearsal rooms as that boy from Eastern New York. And they were like, whoa, slow down. I was like, nah, y'all didn't hear this new G-Unit CD? Oh, it's killer. And, it's like these white folks just like were trying to like temper who I was. They were trying to be like, hey, whoever you are out in East New York, you got to leave that there. When you're here, we're working on Chekhov. I'm like, no, So actually, you have mentioned solo performance. So my first solo show that I wrote was called Black and Blue. And it was my coming of age story where I was dealing with, who I was as a black man, never feeling like I was enough. And actually it's called Black and Blue, my solo play, because it's about how the Backstreet Boys taught me how to be a black man. True story. It was it's directed by Kevin R. Free, an amazing artist, director, actor, just like so many people on this call. Has a workshop coming up at the Apollo Theater. You all should check out. Wow. And it's this one-man show that really takes us through that early 2000 pop culture. Times are changing. you know, and me feeling like, well, I gotta, you know, be down with the New York City gangster rap, be like 50 Cent over here, but then I'm in this space and I gotta, you know, put on the polo and the khaki pants. And I think, you know, to this day, I think I'm still learning how to fully be myself in all of these spaces, particularly now as I'm somebody who is taking a leadership role in these opportunities.
Yes.
And I'm having these conversations around money and access and giving opportunities to other artists. It's been interesting for me to sort of learn how to navigate those conversations. And I admire people like Ty Jones, Jonathan McCory, these great leaders who can have these conversations and still stay authentically themselves. So I think that's, you know, where I have my sights on in terms of my maturation as a man and an artist.
Beautiful, beautiful. Antonia, let me hear about your code switching.
Yeah, actually, it's so funny because I didn't remember this, but my first one-woman show was in New Orleans. It was 8 characters. It was produced by Rahman Muhammad. It was written in part by Sharon Bridgeforth, who was with Tommy Marek for the theater company that I was a part of, repertory theater company I was a part of. And it was 8 characters. And yeah, it sold out. One of the shows sold out so much they said, you're going to have to perform earlier because they got so many people here. And so that gave me the inspiration that if I got to New York and things just wasn't working out, and I actually wrote before I did that show, I wrote Mr. Holder to do Zora, but he had never written me back because, you know, you have to write the writer if you see something you like, a show that I found from that I was with. And so when he didn't write me back, I said, okay, I still got to do something because I want to be brave like Miss Whoopi. So I did. Yeah, it was 8 characters. It was written in part with Sharon Bridgeforth. I kind of did that on stage at dinner theater. I was always doing dinner theater kind of ways because you got to find a way before you get on stage. And it's so expensive to get a theater, you know, so I started doing a lot of dinner theaters. I got into the theater at the Contemporary Arts Center with my one-woman show. And I had a crew that stuck with me the whole time. Rahman Muhammad actually wrote a book called Chopper City. He's from New Orleans. Rashid Kamal did my music. Michael Allen did all my props and my stages.
Nice.
By the time I got to New York and realized I had to work in order to live.
I hear that's, as they say, that's how it be, for sure.
My whole world was like over. I was like, what am I gonna do? You know, I hadn't gotten into the whole thing of getting an agent. When in New York, either you have an agent when you get here, you're working, because you got to make some real changes and some real choices to live. And so, you know, my choice was to work with Showtime at the Apollo, Chuck Sutton, and yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Night Watchman, we're getting ready into our lightning round.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Daniel Carlton, A, we want to know what you're working on. B, how if someone's interested in the talents of Daniel Carlton, how do they reach you, buddy? Do tell. All right.
Knock on my door with a check.
Yes.
Wow. That's simple. That's simple. Okay, go ahead.
I'm working on a show called Finding North, which is I think we're in Pittsburgh in May, and then we wrap somewhere. I can't remember. And I think the dates in Pittsburgh are 15th through the 15th through the 20th or something like that. I guess that can be Google, Finding North. And then I go into directing my partner, Nabi Kelly's play about John Lewis, which is another wise show. So we'll start doing that in May.
Good trouble, baby. I could only imagine.
Yes. And this is called Hero, the Boy from Troy. So it starts with him as a boy as opposed to nice. And so we got that. And then just kind of some of the other things that I'm kind of looking at. I'm trying to spend this summer really like assessing and digging and seeing what is worth like giving another sort of go at. So and writing.
And you'll keep us posted, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you, bro, for sure. And Greg, what you got in the works, man?
Man, I'm shooting a short film today, tomorrow, and Sunday. I'm shooting another short film next Saturday and Sunday. Got another one after that. because I'm just, Sam Jackson is my hero in terms of the volume of work. And I'm here to tell people I can be Sam Jackson too. I can cuss with the best of them. And
Hey, what's in your wallet, Drake?
So yeah, man, just trying to like anything, acting is a practice, and the more that you practice it, the better you become. So I'm just trying to practice.
Beautiful, beautiful. Reynaldo, what you got going on, buddy? Tell us.
I'm trying to be like Greg. That's what I got going on. For real. So April 29th, one night only, a solo show about Schomburg called No History is coming to Culture Lab LIC in Long Island City.
Yes.
Tickets are free, so please come out if you can and you're able to. May 19th, I'm actually being honored with an award.
Congrats, bro.
Yes. Thank you. I'm the theater alumni of the year from Brooklyn College, where I went to school. So Brooklyn College, appreciate that love. Then June 4th, I'm co-hosting the Working Theaters Gala. Working Theater, amazing nonprofit theater company. Come out, support them if you can. And then June 23rd, I got a reading of my show about Martín de Porres, the first Black saint of the Americas. Wow. That's going to be at HB Studio, where I'll be in residence. So come out, y'all, and it's free.
No, I have to tell you, I was on the committee for that.
Go ahead.
Like, I have to tell you, man, like, I was just like your advocate, man. I'm like, y'all, we got to, I had the panel reading it out loud.
No.
Yes, indeed. So bottom line, the brother had some chops.
Oh, he's the man. He's the one.
Very nice. Antonia, what you got going on?
Yes, always the children's book. So it's going to be, that's what I'm going to be doing. But make sure, catch Zora October 14th to the 20th. American Theater of Actors. And thanks to Caroline Schimmel, she's a collector that's bringing me to 54th Street. And of course, we will be looking for more theater producers to get this show to Broadway.
Yes.
And you can be found on the radio.
Yes, 54th Street is close. So, yeah.
All
so
right.
any theater producers out there, come see the show. It's a one-woman show, 19 character portrayals of Zora Neale Hurston. Yeah. And,
excellent.
Excellent.
But Antonia, when is your show on?
Go
ahead.
Yes, the Harlem Renaissance Time Travel on WHCR every Sunday, 4 to 5. And right after that is Bluesian Empress, Chasing the Blues, 5 to 6 with a blues show. Yes. On WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
And I think Tavis Smiley joined you guys on the Sunday lineup on WHCR now, right?
Right after me.
All right, okay. Your opening act, that's not bad. And of course, you can find us on WHCR 90.3 FM on Monday nights at 7 o'clock. And you can find us live streaming on YouTube and Facebook at 8 p.m. Thank you for this great lineup of guests, for the great work that you guys are doing. And you can find us here on Monday night. We'll be here next Monday with something so amazing we can't even tell you what it is yet.
Exactly. But Night Watchman, they will be invited to the cookout, correct?
Absolutely.
All right. Guys, love y'all.